my god. I bought a powerful Gary and Little Yellow book, and a few other SpongeBob episodes were bad, but this was a terrifying episode. Cue the intro, if you please. Hi guys, this is Jonathan, the Disney fan here, and here is my review / rant on Face Freeze. So basically what the plot's about is SpongeBob and Patrick were eating lunch, and while they were eating, they started to make ugly faces at each other. Mr. Krabs hears them laughing and thinks that it's the sound of his money being fucked up. Excuse my language, but that's what it is. Mr. Krabs doesn't care about anything but money. Excuse my language though, but he thinks about that way because he doesn't care about anyone else but money. You know how Mr. Krabs is. He's very selfish and greedy. And he rushes out of his office and to see them making faces, and he scolds at them to stop and tells them a story about a man named Fred Richard who would not stop sticking his tongue out. And when he stick the tongue out to like this old lady, it froze permanently. It eventually got dried up and fell off. SpongeBob and Patrick became horrified of this story, and they promised to never make faces ever again. Yeah, right. They promised nothing. They didn't kept their promise. They break their promise, and I'm gonna tell you why they broke Mr. Krabs' promise. And SpongeBob and Patrick because SpongeBob and Patrick tried their hardest not to make faces, but they started doing it. And then, yeah, they started making faces at each other. And then they realized, you know what? Mr. Krabs' story wasn't real after all. It was all a fake. So you know what they did? They continued making those faces. They kept making those ugly faces, even the ones that are so disturbing for children to see. Even ones that are so disturbing for children. And they go to many places in Bikini Bottom, and they scare the living crap out of everybody. And Sandy's like, what the hell's wrong with you? You guys need help. Yeah, Sandy, they really need help. There's something mentally wrong with them in this episode. I don't know why they kept making faces, but there's something mentally wrong with them in this episode. And later that night, SpongeBob and Patrick were in a tent outside SpongeBob's house, laughing at each other, making lots of noises. Squidward eventually gets irritated and yells at them to shut up and keep it down. And SpongeBob then suggests that they were trying to sleep for the night while holding the face. And they started doing this while Squidward finally gets peace and quiet. And then the next day, they woke up, but then they realized that their faces was frozen, turning out that the story that Mr. Krabs told them was real and that Mr. Krabs was actually right. So they started screaming and they go to Sandy's to need help because they need help. So Sandy tries to fix it, but does she really fix them? Sadly, no. She actually makes it worse. She makes their faces distorted and droop down to their chins. And SpongeBob goes to work in the Krusty Krab with his hideous frozen face. I mean, my God. The way that Sandy did to them, it looks hideous. Absolutely hideous. Sandy did a terrible job of what she'd done to them. She tries to fix them, but eventually making them look even more worse and more abysmal. And even more hideous. They look hideous. And at the Krusty Krab, SpongeBob had caused a lot of ruckus as he tries to make Krabby Patties and keeps Mr. Krabs from looking at his face at the same time. However, Mr. Krabs discovers that SpongeBob's face had frozen problem and Patrick walks into the Krusty Krab with a contorted frozen face. Mr. Krabs then scolds at SpongeBob on this, and the later feels guilty and he apologized for doubting the boss that this was all a fake. But then Mr. Krabs gets so furious, he started to make a face and it froze that way. Now Mr. Krabs' face is completely frozen. And Mr. Krabs is like, "Oh my God, my face! My beautiful face! Oh my God, my face is ruined!" And then Squidward comes and he sees Patrick, Mr. Krabs, and SpongeBob's face frozen, and he laughs. And unfortunately for Squidward, he gets a face freeze too, and everyone laughs at Squidward. That's cold-hearted. That's very cold-hearted. That was a cold-hearted ending. The way that Squidward got his face freeze and everyone laughs at him, that's mean. That's awful. And Squidward's like, "Please stop laughing at me! I can't take this anymore!" That's awful. Yeah, that's basically what the plot is for the entire episode. Guys, do you want to know what are my thoughts about this episode? Well, here it is. Yeah, that was my thoughts. It's so terrifying. It was awful. Do I have anything positive? No. So let's jump into the negatives. So first of all, this is the worst episode I've ever experienced. SpongeBob and Patrick were making faces non-stop, and even when Mr. Krabs told them a story that they thought that wasn't true, they continued making faces. And some of the images, the way that they made faces, That's terrifying for children. How is this acceptable for children? Like if the image of Who Bob What Pants wasn't disturbing enough, this is even more, probably even more disturbing than ever. Who finds these images funny to begin with? They're not funny, they're just disturbing. I'm very aghast of how the director of this episode got away with this. The director actually got away with this without being sued because of the disturbing images. This is supposed to be a kids show, but with lots of disturbing things. Especially at the end. All the faces that they make were very hideous to begin with. Like, these are the most uncreative and hideous faces ever. And the way it gets frozen, oh my god, they're disturbing to look at. And Sandy did a poor job trying to fix SpongeBob and Patrick. She just eventually made it worse for them. And the way SpongeBob and Patrick scared the citizens of Bikini Bottom, oh my god. And the ending was heartless. The way that everyone laughed at Squidward because his face got frozen, that was awful. That was the worst ending ever. Especially when SpongeBob scolded at Gary instead of saying, "You saved my life, Gary," from a powerful Gary. That was the worst one ever. I'm very aghast that this had become a realistic episode of SpongeBob SquarePants when honestly it felt like something that doesn't even feel like a kid's show. It feels more like a nightmarish roller coaster ride. But with SpongeBob and Patrick's disturbing faces that they make. And the jokes were just offensive, and it had a very disturbing sense of humor. This is probably one of the worst episodes I've ever had the misfortune to experience. The dialogue, the writing, the script, everything is a huge disaster. This episode is a huge disaster, and this is one of the main reasons why SpongeBob had continued to go downhill as well. This is also a main reason why SpongeBob had went downhill too. So yeah. This was probably the most abysmal episode ever. So for my final rating for Face Freeze, I'm gonna give this episode a 1 out of 7. Horrendous episode. And that's my review/rant on Face Freeze. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. This is me signing off, and I'll see you guys next time.